to the alcohol, the drugs, the sex, and the things that they do. And by the way, the more they do any of it, the worse they feel. Because they're never going to find what it really takes. I was remembering that some years ago, when I was a young man, well, that's a lot of years ago, when I was a young man, a friend of mine asked me a question. He said, what is it that everybody wants? I said, money, of course. That's easy. Next question. He said, no, not everybody wants money. I said, what? He said, there are people that money isn't what they're after. He said, I'm saying, what is it that everybody wants? I said, a woman. He said, no, women don't want women. I said, oh yeah. He said, can you tell me? I said, well, if it's not money, it's not a car. He said, there are people that can't drive a car, they wouldn't want a car. I said, are you sure everybody wants it? He said, yes. I said, anything to do with religion? He said, no. I said, what is it that everybody wants? Peace. There's not a human being on the earth except that what they're doing, they're hoping will bring them peace. And there's only one way of life out there that is guaranteed to bring us peace in this life and peace in the next life. And you already know what it is. Allah has already given it to you. And it is a ni'mah. The biggest of favors of Allah, and as Allah said, Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum Islam dina. On this day have I perfected for you your way of life, conferred upon you my greatest of favors, and have chosen for you to submit to me in al-Islam. The kind of peace that comes with Islam is not the kind that we greet each other with. When we greet each other, we say, Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam. But we never greet each other with Islam alaikum, do we? No. Because the peace that's in the word Islam is something much more comprehensive, much more specific to a point. Because the word Islam doesn't translate to English. There's never been a translation in the English language of the Quran that included a translation of this word. They always just said Islam. Islam is an Arabic word. If you're translating, why didn't you translate that? Because they can't. They will translate or mistranslate a lot of words. Deen, they call religion. That's wrong. Iqra, they say it means read. That's wrong. The word Allah, they say it means God. That's not enough. But at least they're trying. But when you come to this word Islam, they don't even translate it. So how is it a translation if you leave the main word untranslated? Aslama is the verb coming from silm, sin, lam, mim. And the beauty behind it is that it takes 5 words in English, all working at the exact same time to attain this state, this verb, this action. And it's more a state of mind before it's a state of action. The body has to do something, but not until you have this in place. Probably you guys know it better than I do, but I'll repeat it anyway. The first word is submission. Actually, surrender. First word, surrender. Now, you know surrender, right? Surrender, give up. We Muslims were getting really good at that. You know, Afghanistan, Iraq, places like that. Airport security. We're good at surrender. Oh, yeah. Submission is the next word. To submit to Almighty Allah on His terms, doing what He wants us to do. And then the next word, obedience. To really obey the commandments of Allah. And that's Islam. The The fourth word is sincerity, and this, above all things, proves Islam cannot be spread with a sword. Islam cannot be spread by a sword. La ikraha fid-din, because you can't force people to be sincere. Can you force people to be sincere? Huh? So how could you force anybody to be a Muslim? You can't force people to do Islam out of their heart. And what's the fifth word? Peace. Salam. So salam is in Islam, but Islam is more than salam. So the next time somebody tells you Islam is peace, tell them to go get some education. It's a lot more than that. The peace in Islam only comes after the person has done the other four words, because they all have to be there together. The surrender to Allah, the submission to His commandments, the obedience to the Quran and the Sunnah, and then being sincere in the heart, the ikhlas, the khushu' that is mandated by Islam. Then and only then are you eligible for the fifth word, and that's peace. But it's the kind of peace that comes when the calamity comes. It's the kind of peace that comes when the fitna comes. It's the kind of peace that no matter what happens to you in this life, you say Alhamdulillah kulli hal, Alhamdulillah min Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Alhamdulillah qadr Allah. Then you have found real peace. The Prophet ﷺ told us in the Arabic language, he used the word ajib, astonishing, amazing, is the condition of the mu'min, the true believer, because only good happens to him. In the case of the one who receives the things that he wants, he's thankful to Allah, shukr Allah, alhamdulillah. But in the case of the one who is not getting what he wants, he finds the fitna, the calamities, the difficulties. He does what? He makes sabr, perseverance, steadfast, patience. And it's good for him, said the Prophet ﷺ. But it's only in the case of the mu'min, the believer. May Allah make us all believers. May Allah make us all content and at peace with whatever circumstance we find ourselves. Ameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us and show us the beauty of what we have in front of us every day, being Muslims, in the state of Aslama. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wake us up to the reality of spreading this message and getting it out to the people before it's too late for them and before it's too late for us. You and I, we have a chance. We do not know how long. We don't know how long we'll have what we have today. Don't take it for granted. Let us learn a lesson from those who went before us. Consider the condition of the Muslims of Spain. My grandfathers came from Spain in the 1400s. They left Spain and they came to Kent right here in England. 200 years later, they migrated to the New World. By then, they'd all become Christians. Their names were Matthew and Richard. And subhanallah, can you imagine that I go back to the religion of my great-great-grandfathers at the hands of somebody from Egypt who's nothing but a businessman? And then my father, my wife, my family, they're all coming to Islam. In the tens of thousands of people I've seen since then. In the prisons, in the military, in the governments. I've seen people in New York City government make shahada because they understood the beauty of this message. But how can we sit and just ignore something as amazing as the spread of Islam and not be involved. This is our deen. This is our way of life. But if we really understand, we can also figure out that it won't be long that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put on us the same thing He did on my grandfathers. Why did they leave Spain in the 1400s? And I think you already know the answer. What was the year? What was the year that the Muslims lost Spain to the Catholic Church? 1492. January the 12th. And listen to this, brothers and sisters. Before you get too wrapped up in your own world today, oh, I'm too busy, I don't have time. This is what my grandfathers were doing right before they lost everything and had to either leave or be tortured into Christianity. And they're using today a technique. Right now it's on one of my websites, my news website. You can see it for yourself. It's called waterboarding. Have you heard about waterboarding? Well, they used it during the Spanish Inquisition against my own relatives. And that's where you hang them up on the board on an incline down and start putting the cloth over their face and pouring water on their mouth and their nose, and they feel like they're drowning. And when they let you get back up, they'll ask you, now, who is God? Wrong answer, back down again. In 15 seconds is enough to make anybody confess to any crime in the world. And they have a demonstration, and I got the videotape from YouTube and put it on our website. You can watch it. And how far away are you from that right now? Because the demonstration wasn't about the Inquisition. It was about Muslims who confessed to crimes while they were at Guantanamo. And one of them endured 183 days of 30 times a day of the illusion of drowning before he confessed to everything they wanted to hear. How far are you away from that? How far are any of us away from that or worse? Because we don't take the time to follow this important part of Islam. You either share Islam with these people or Allah will turn the people against you. It's as simple as that. And it can't be a corrupted form of Islam. It cannot be an innovated form of Islam, a modified form of Islam. It cannot be a modernized form of Islam or some goofy form, and I think you know what I meant by that, form of Islam. It has to be the real Quran and the real Sunnah. And there are brothers and sisters here, right here now, ready to do this work. But it doesn't happen by one or two people. It takes all of us to work together. You're my real brothers, my real sisters in Islam. I love all of you. Some of you made some mistakes, but not as bad as some of the ones I've made. But we ask Allah to forgive us, and He'll forgive us. But there are conditions to that. Let's listen again as we close our program tonight. Let's listen one more time. But let's listen to the Arabic of the verse. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله ولو آمن أهل الكتاب لكان خيرا لهم. I don't think some of you knew it continued, did you?